real far into it. And I'm like, how? How did I ever
Oh,
do
yeah.
this?
Because the shootouts were just like, "Oh, well, okay. I'm gonna be ducking a lot." Like,
Yeah, even on easy, I'm like dying pretty consistently, and I'm like, what the hell?
yeah, yeah.
I think we're back in, but nobody's joined us quite yet. It'll take a minute for him to get in here. So what is Mafia PlayStation 4?
It's everything right
Is that
now.
what you're playing on though?
Yeah, I'm playing on the PS4.
Paul?
Yeah,
Until,
only
like-
Nintendo has exclusives anymore. I mean,
Yeah, this is true. I've been doing a bit more PC gaming lately, which I've
Dude,
been
that's what
enjoying.
I'm trying to get my PC. I'm trying to save up for a good PC, and then I'm going to run it over here to the projector,
yeah.
HDMI it, and then I'm still getting the Steam Deck. I'm so pumped for that damn thing.
When are you getting
Well,
it?
It's delayed, man. End of
Oh, yeah.
22,
Ooh.
if I'm lucky. I mean, I already on the pre-order list, so I'll get it. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. You'll get it when you get a video card. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I bought an RTX 3070 in December of last year for $700, and I'm like, I'm overpaying here. Now it's a $1,000 card, and I'm like, I'm so glad I bought it when I
Holy
bought it.
crap, dude. No
That's
doubt.
the reason why I've been wanting a gaming PC, but I'm like, realistically, to get anything decent, I'm spending $3,000 minimum.
Patrick
Well,
Stewart,
here's the
what's up,
thing.
dude?
You can
We kind of
buy-
rebooted. We had an issue where we were notified we only had 10 minutes left to finish the podcast, so we were going to just jump straight into Spider-Man. That ended up falling short because I had some sort of technical issues. Like literally OBS just kicked me right off of got kicked right off. Yeah, Patrick Stewart, you might be correct. The prevailing theory so far is that Jeremy's channel got hacked and shut down by the Milton Dog Humper.
That's exactly what happened.
Dude, I tweeted the other day a stupid tweet about Gary V. Are you guys familiar? You know of Gary V?
No
Gary
idea.
V.
Gary V is a motivational speaker. He's like he's a financial motivational speaker and probably a really, I'm sure he's helped a bunch of people out in their personal lives. I know I have friends that are big fans of him, but I hate motivational speakers kind of thing. And I tweeted, just woke up this morning and masturbated to a video by Gary V. Hashtag rise and grind or something. Or it's going to be a productive week. Hashtag rise and grind. And within an hour, my Twitter account had been hacked and shut down. It's like, damn,
Really?
dude. Yeah. I don't know that these things are related.
I just know that half the stories we've talked about have involved humping or masturbating
Correct.
so far.
Yes. Welcome to the show.
Now we can talk about movies on the movie show.
Yeah. I guess. Holden bought my 3070 Ti and it has helped immensely. I bet, dude. Sorry, Caleb.
So, rewind this. I genuinely don't believe you like the Spider-Man trailer. I think you're fucking with me right now.
All right, so
so be honest with me. You genuinely thought this trailer looked good.
I didn't think it looked not good. I thought it was cool, man. It's got a lot of things that are exciting about it. I don't know. It's impossible to critique these things as movies on their own. At this point, to me, it looks like a bunch of things that I like that are being brought together that is potentially exciting. Like, I love the Raimi trilogy. I like the first Amazing Spider-Man. I don't love the Raimi trilogy. I love the first and second Spider-Man movie.
Yes.
Amazing Spider-Man's pretty good. I thought it was fine. And then I've liked the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies. The idea of bringing together an alternative version of the Sinister Six. I like those characters in the comics. I like that we're bringing in like Doc Ock from the original, Sandman from the original.
Yeah.
What did you think about the dialogue in the trailer?
Was there dialogue? I didn't even know that.
Yes.
Dude. I'm gonna be honest.
They literally say it was already, I was not into it. But then there's one point where Doctor Strange is talking and he goes something about, we need to Scooby Doo this.
Oh yeah,
and
dude. Best fucking comic relief ever.
Your
funniest thing.
I know you're trolling me now.
Funniest thing that's ever been in a movie, bro.
Please say please. And she's like, please Scooby Doo this. I was like, and these movies get praised for excellent writing. Blows my mind.
Dude, just stop. There was the other scene where Doc Ock they're like, what's your real name? And he's like, Dr. Otto Octavius. And they just start busting out laughing.
Yeah.
And then the little thing like looks with him. Like his little, you can't see my hand. It's over it.
Yeah.
It goes, yes, yeah. And it's silly, but it kind of works also. I think they're skewing a little bit younger with these Spider-Man movies.
Well, the whole MCU is really young.
Jesus, dude. No, Eternals is the most deep movie ever
Okay,
made.
well, no, I haven't seen Eternals. So, but
Let's see what the chat has to say about this. Let's see. If you went camping with a group of guys and one of them suggested y'all capture a baby deer and a baby goat and hump it and then kill it and then eat it, would you do it like a male bonding thing? Yeah, I mean, I don't even understand where the question is there.
yeah, I know that sounds like
I like
Friday night.
Michael Che from Saturday Night Live has a great stand-up bit where he's saying, like, I don't think that humping a goat is that bad. Like, you want to kill it and eat it. I think that's the worst thing for it.
Yeah.
Very true.
This is accurate. I think the trailer looks fine, dude. I had a whole breakdown, like where I had, let me see if I can't pull it up. I've got a link to a Gizmodo breakdown of the video in which they have GIFs of everything that happens throughout the trailer. And if I can pull it up, I can have a better understanding of what even happens in it, because I watched it twice. I don't really remember a whole lot from it. But now that you bring up that that joke, the Scooby Doo thing, it was fine for me. I didn't have an issue with it.
I'll tell you what I have an issue with, though.
Go.
Which is the laughing at the Dr. Otto Octavius. You can't just make fun of your goofy comic book stuff and then think you're getting away with it because, oh, see, we get the joke too. We know that using bow and arrow against aliens is a dumb thing, so we'll make Hawkeye make fun of himself over. No,
that doesn't work for you.
Ridiculous.
No, it's cheap, lazy hack writing. That's why it doesn't work for us.
Lazy hack writing.
Damn.
I hate it when a movie has something in it that's bad or poorly done or poorly written, and then the writers reference it saying, see, we know it's bad. I'm like, yes, I know it's bad. I'm asking you to fix it because you're the professional making the movie.
All right, fair enough, and I understand that point 1,000%. Let's delve into this a little bit more.
I think we need to kick Jeremy off the podcast now. I think we kind of
both of you guys, dude. Fuck you both. I don't know, because I hear where you're coming from, but when you have an issue that is inherent to the source material, is not addressing it the better solution, Paul?
Well, this gets into the difficult thing of there are things that are very much of their era. And comic books are, and one time we accepted that Spider-Man had a villain, and this is real, named Roy G. Bigelow, who was the Rainbow Warrior, who used color somehow to fight. And then Batman has Calendar Man.
Mm-hmm.
And they tried to make Calendar Man really threatening in the Arkham games, where like he's this really creepy serial killer who's like, yes, I remember on Arbor Day when I killed her with a tree. And it's like, okay, but it's still goofy as hell. And my problem is maybe there is a way to get around it. Like, I think that they dealt with it well in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse with, they didn't mock the name of the Doctor, whatever the female version of Dr. Octavius was. They actually used it as a reveal for, oh, she's Doc Ock in this universe. And it was actually an interesting, tense moment because you realize, oh, she's not neutral or a good guy. She's very much a villain. And here they're just, my name is Dr. Otto Octavius. That's a goofy name. Cool. We all get that. Thank you for pointing that out, Marvel.
All right.
Anything of substance in the next minute or two?
Here's what a talented writer would do. But everyone freaks out when people try to do this in comic book films. You try to rework it, maybe even rename the character to make it less hacky and make it fit in with more modern sensibilities. But anytime anyone does that, people go, oh, you ruined my childhood. It's not what it remembers. Granted, this is done well in comic books all the time, and no one bitches at all. But then when you get it to mainstream casual fans who read Wikipedia pages so they think they know these characters,
correct,
they get very offended that they changed something that has already been changed in the comic 8 billion times.
So your solution, what you're saying is it's okay to change it.
Yes, it's okay to rework it. Make it better.
When you run into things, and Caleb, you're probably not even super aware of this, but MJ in the current Sony Marvel Spider-Man universe is not Mary Jane. It's Michelle Jones or something like that. I don't know what her last name is, but MJ is initials for a totally different character's name. I don't have an
Doesn't bother
issue
me.
with it, but
No.
of course, Spider-Man fans are like, she's not white, she's not got red hair, this isn't Mary Jane, and it's like, well, they tried to address something that they thought that would work better in the live action telling done a different way. So it's challenging, and obviously there's nothing that's going to be Teflon that everybody's going to agree on.
To me, they're very, very selective in their outreach. They'll be like, I don't know, I always use this example, and they're like, oh, Batman doesn't kill. And I'm like, well, some comics he does, whatever, you know?
Yeah.
And then,
He's
but
done
then
in some of these.
yeah, and then they'll be like, well, Tom Holland needs to be 15. Actually, in the comics, he's only 15. I'm not Tom. Spider-Man needs to be 15 forever, you know? And I'm like, actually, in the comics, he's 15 years old for very, very little. He's an adult more than he's a child. But they're like, no, that's it. And I'm like, no, you don't have any reference point for this character. And you're afraid of it being reworked. But if I gave you a comic book or even Batman in general, the modern version of Batman that everyone loves is highly influenced by Frank Miller and Tim Burton.
Mm-hmm.
Those were people reworking these campy characters and making them something palatable. But people saw that version, so in their head, that's their original version. So everything needs to be that.
Yeah, for sure.
I remember when I was talking to a guy, and this is after Batman Begins came out, and he's like, "What? Joe Chill killed his parents? Everybody knows from the comics that Jack Napier killed his parents." I'm like, no, Jack Napier was a character created specifically for the Tim Burton Batman movie. Joe Chill existed way before Jack Napier did. In fact, he didn't even have the name Joe Chill for a long time. It was just some guy.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Well,
so,
I know we derailed your thing. Let's talk about this crappy trailer.
Shut up, dude. Oh my God, let's talk about anything else. No, I think it's good. I'm excited about it. I'm going to take this conversation in a different direction, though.
Yes,
because
yes, we need to talk about the trailer.
I want to talk about which villains from these established films you guys would like enough to see as the Sinister Six in this current iteration of the film. So we've got confirmations, according to the trailer, of people that would be in it, but let's just look at the history of Spider-Man movies on film. Which are the villains that should stay? Which are the villains that should go? I guess we'll start at the beginning with Green Goblin as portrayed by Willem Dafoe. Caleb, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a cool reworking of the character. I actually like that one.
I don't know about the costume. I know there's been a lot of critiques about that, but again, reworking the source material, it would have been really weird for him to be wearing a prosthetic goblin mask. So while I don't think they nailed the design, and it is a little Power Rangers-y, is that the better decision than going with a more
like a Halloween mask? Like, no pun intended, but that's what it is.
Yes.
I do think this is a better option. I think it's a little less hokey. It's one of those things that works well. The Halloween mask works. I love Green Goblin on paper. Like, I don't think that translates to live action. So I think this is the way to go.
Yeah. What about you, Paul? What do you think?
Well, they tried to, early on when they were making the first Spider-Man movie in 2002, they tried to give him a prosthetic mask like what would have been in the comics. And they all looked at it and were like, this looks ridiculous. We can't do this. It's stupid. So they completely redesigned it to what you saw in the movie. And what's in the movie is great. It's threatening. I mean, it's terrifying when he bursts through the wall on Aunt May. So I think that it looked perfect.
I think you bring up a good point about that original screen test of that animatronic type face mask. It was super cool. It didn't work in the context of the story. So I agree with both of you guys. And then going to the next film, which is beloved by many and probably seen as the greatest Spider-Man film of all time, and that is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, in which we're introduced to Dr. Otto Octavius as portrayed by Alfred Molina. We know he's coming into this next movie. We know he's got a major role to play. And in fact, there's a shot that I'm looking at right now where he and Electro are fighting. So it looks as if Dr. Otto Octavius may be getting a redemption arc and may actually be fighting on the side of our heroes. Caleb, how does that hit you as a comic book fan to see Dr. Ock and Spider-Man fighting on the same side again?
Doesn't bother me at all. I mean, that happens in comics all the time. It doesn't bother me in the least.
Are you a fan of that character? Did you think he did a good job as him?
That's easily my favorite Spider-Man film, and he's easily my favorite Spider-Man villain.
I really like the look of the mechanical arms. I thought they did a great job with the effects on them, how each of them has their own different personality types and stuff. I really didn't like the lack of shirt underneath the trench coat, but hey,
I didn't
small
even notice
details.
that.
Small details. What do you think? What do you think, Paul, about Dr. Ock as a villain?
I love Alfred Molina's characterization of him. I think he's fantastic. He is Dr. Ock in my mind. My only concern is the MCU's ability to they're introducing more and more bathos into the series. And I do not like this deflation of scary or threatening characters by making them into comic reliefs. As much as I loved Thor Ragnarok, and I think that is a fun movie, there are still too many moments where even Hela is played for laughs at points. And I don't want, and even that little bit in the trailer where they show like his head turns and little, like, okay, is that necessary? He's supposed to be a threatening character. Even if he's on the side of good, you should still never really feel at ease around him. And if he's doing something goofy, it deflates him and defangs him from what he could be. Now, again, I'm judging from 3 seconds in a trailer.
I think you make an excellent point. I think,
Couldn't agree
Caleb,
more.
you probably
Spot
agree
on.
with that as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been one of my main criticisms, and that's always why, like, even as heroes, like, I've had a hard time with, as a massive Hulk fan, seeing him played so for comic release. It's always like stings to me.
I
So
think that's
couldn't agree more.
a thing that either is going to work for you about Marvel films because they've maintained a relatively consistent, or it's going to be a major turnoff for you. And I think I have just the right amount of reverence for these cartoon characters that I'm not really all that, like, from a dramatic standpoint. I think, Paul, well, everything you said is 100% spot on. I think for me, going to see a lot of times these movies, and not to be diminutive of him, but I don't have so much respect for Dr. Octopus as a character that I really care all that much.
Right.
As far as how you treat a villain in film, I still agree with you 1,000%. So it's an interesting thing where I've just kind of almost like, okay, it's going to be cheeky, it's going to be self-aware, it's going to acknowledge some of the things that we all joke about and think are dumb, and it's going to do it in a way that is palatable, I suppose. So I've not had too many issues with that, but I definitely see where you're coming from. After we had Dr. Octopus, we move into Spider-Man 3, where we start getting villains just thrown at us from every direction. We've got New Goblin, we've got Sandman, and we've got Venom. Venom portrayed by Topher Grace. Thomas Hayden Church played Sandman, and then New Goblin obviously played by James Franco. This was kind of where the first trilogy fell apart. I think that it's got some good moments in it, but as far as an overall film, not a big fan of it. I don't think I'm alone in that. But what about these villains? Like, let's say we gotta take one from this movie. Caleb, who do we take, man? Which one has to come with?
So I hate Venom in this movie.
Yeah.
I think Topher Grace is very good shockingly good as Brock.
Okay.
Like he's surprisingly good. Can we do a take Topher Grace but redesign Venom to look more like Venom, or is he straight up out of the movie?
No, because we're doing multiverse, so you can do any version. Yeah, we could do that. We could do
I want Topher Grace, but I want him to look more like the new Venom.
And so if you're taking one from Spider-Man 3, it is Topher Grace as Eddie Brock, but we've got a slightly redesigned Venom. Fair enough. I hate it. What about you, Paul?
I'm actually going to diverge here from Caleb. I would actually rather see Sandman because I want to give him another shot. I like the character of Sandman. I also like the idea that he's not entirely a bad guy. Because again, he was trying to get that money to save his daughter, and he was turned into this villain, into this thing, unwittingly. His powers are really interesting. Sandman's powers are always really fascinating. Like, I've always found like the concept of gray goo to be terrifying. Like, if you ever saw The Day the Earth Stood Still, with the new one with Keanu Reeves. I had nightmares from that for a while. And then, of course, jokingly done in Futurama with Bender replicating himself. So the idea that he can be that is he's somebody who has conflicted motivations, He is doing things for the terrible things for kind of a good reason, but he can also do something that is utterly horrifying. He is able to shapeshift. He's able to, I mean, just like Grey Goo, he could go into somebody and tear them apart. And so he's almost like because Carnage is interesting from a standpoint of like he's the like even worse than Venom, and yes, he's utterly terrible, but he doesn't have like quite the horrifying powers, an unstoppable nature that Sandman does. So I'd love to see him in a situation where he has to use these powers that he has been given in a terrible, horrifying way, all the while we as the audience know that he's not really as bad of a guy as these other people are.
Yeah, I like it.
Inspiration.
I think that's a great pick. I like the way that you kind of delved into it, and I think Thomas Hayden Church is a great actor, so bringing him in would definitely be a good thing. It starts to get back into this area, which you mentioned a moment ago, where we're starting to see multiple villains that have redemption arcs within their own stories, maybe an about face at the end. We've got a Dr. Ock who looks to almost be reformed in some ways in this trailer, but now we would be introducing Sandman, who's another sympathetic character. I wonder if, because while I love the idea of a do-over, I wonder if the characters are going to be so abridged in this movie that it might, I don't see it serving all of the characters super well anyways. From an aesthetic standpoint, I think I have to go with you on Sandman. My only critique about that, and I don't think Caleb saw it, I don't know if you did, but the movie Far From Home is elementals. So Spider-Man fights magma, he fights water, he fights so they're kind of similar in that way. I don't want the visuals to get redundant. So I guess if I was going to take somebody from Spider-Man 3, I'm going to just go the other way and say I would take New Goblin, because James Franco's they're not touching James Franco. Default, sorry, that one's out the window. We'll move on. Amazing Spider-Man, we got the Lizard, and Doc Connor.
He's in this, right?
He looks to be in it. I wouldn't 100% be surprised if they are lizardizing Tom Hardy's Venom. I would not be surprised. The way they left Hulk out of the Endgame and Infinity War promotional material and CG item in the trailers, I think that they're making Venom look like Lizard, because it's a big spoiler, but I don't think it's gonna break y'all's hearts too much to find out that at the very end of Venom 2, Spider-Man Spider-Verse opens up and Venom gets brought into the Marvel movies.
Then he's definitely in it.
So we've got him. We've got this version of the Lizard, which I gotta ask just right off the bat, Paul, take or leave that version of the Lizard from Amazing?
I mean, it's 50-50 for me. You can coin flip them. I mean, I don't have enough attachment to that movie to really care. Like, I care about the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans. I don't really care about the Amazing Spider-Man. Although I know you're going to get to Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I'll have a thought about that.
Okay. All right. Caleb, what do you think, man?
I feel the same exact way. I love the Lizard, mainly actually not because of the comics, because of that 90s, 2000s Spider-Man cartoon. Love Lizard in that.
But he was great
as far as the movie, I'm kind of the same way. I could take him or leave him. I really have no attachment. I don't dislike that character. I don't like it.
He looked so stupid. He really did. I wanted a more lizard-like face. I don't understand why they did Killer Croc and Lizard dirty in the same way and made him way too humanoid looking.
Killer Croc, they went like original Killer Croc, like original comic book version of Killer Croc, where he just was a dude with a skin condition.
Yeah, for real. Hey, Nick Mayfield in the chat. What's poppin', Slimes? Crashing Coyote also in the chat and says, I think Lizard will be only Lizard, no Doc Connors. The CGI was dreadful, says Ibrahima in the regards to No Way Home.
I take that all with a grain of salt, though, because they're still working on the CG. CG you see in trailers is not final quality CG.
Nope.
Zextro says Lizard is definitely in the Multiverse 5. Venom not going to be part of the team, but he'll be in the post-credit scene. That's okay. We'll see. We'll definitely see. Let us know once we check out the movie. We'll circle back around to this. I could definitely see that happening as well. So we have now entered. Also we get introduced sort of to Harry in that version we get introduced to that version of Harry in the Amazing movies. I think he didn't show up till the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't know for sure. Don't quote me on that. I don't think any of us remember very well what actually happened there. But I will say this movie introduced us to Jamie Foxx as Electro. It also introduced us to Dane DeHaan as Goblin, as well as Rhino.
Paul Giamatti.
Paul Giamatti is Rhino. Yeah. Okay. So we got 3 just big ones in here. Paul, you said you got thoughts on it. What you got, man?
Paul Giamatti is Rhino. I love Paul Giamatti.
Yeah.
I love him and everything. And him getting a chance to be threatening is wonderful. Because so many people think of him as sideways or in goofy roles in like Private Parts or that movie with Frankie Muniz. I forget what that was called. And who cares? Nobody remembers. Doesn't matter anyway.
Big Fat Liar. I remember.
Big Fat Liar. Thank you. Big Fat Liar.
Nice.
And he was in Straight Outta Compton. But he doesn't get chances to be very threatening. And if you've ever seen a movie called John Dies at the End, which is based on a book written by cracked writer David Wong's book, John Dies at the End, he plays this reporter who's very not threatening, but he talks very low and like he knows more than he's supposed to. And I love that quality of Paul Giamatti. So him as a threatening character can work really well. And I say give him another shot at Rhino, because I would love to see more of him.
Yeah. I actually love that movie, John Dies at the End. Caleb, have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Okay.
I also loved Paul Giamatti.
I was going to say put that on your list because I thought you might like John Dies at the End. It's actually directed by Don Cascarelli, I think, the guy that did Phantasm. So.
And,
also, as someone who's never seen the Spider-Man movie, I did not know there was Green Goblin in it until right now, so I'm Googling it.
Yeah, he never quite makes it to Green Goblin. Not the one that we know and well, yeah, I mean, he looks like he's got herpy face. Basically, it's not a good look. They kind of split the difference between New Goblin and traditional comic book version. Not great. But I guess if I was going to take somebody from that movie, it would be Electro because of the cool power set. So I think they went the right direction. I like the fact that they've redesigned them.
I was just going to say, compliments where compliments are due. Just exactly what we're talking about. When something's campy, you rework it and make it look cool. His stupid comic book mask, how it just blinks when he shoots. Incredible. Such a good design. When I saw that, I was like, that is an incredible design. So honestly, great credit to MCU for making that look awesome.
So coming into the MCU, we're introduced to several different characters. In the original Spider-Man Homecoming, we've got Vulture and we've got Shocker. Shocker and Electro's power sets are pretty damn close. I know they're not exactly the same. So between Vulture and Shocker, of course, I'm going with Vulture. Michael Keaton was phenomenal in that role. Caleb, did you see Homecoming?
I didn't, but everyone tells me that Michael Keaton's the reason to watch it.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, there's a guy who, if you need a character, because he's like Batman. I mean, okay, I know what I just said, but bear with me. The character they definitely wrote to be very much of a Batman, very threatening. Even though he doesn't have powers, I felt much more threatened by Vulture. I mean, I don't want to spoil for you if you haven't seen it, Caleb, because the movie is actually really good.
I'll never watch it. Spoil it away.
You got to watch it, dude.
Okay, fair enough.
But he don't care.
I mean, there's a point where he begins to suspect who Peter Parker is, that he's Spider-Man, and as he's piecing it together and figuring out, it's very much of a Tarantino-esque kind of beginning of Inglourious Bastards kind of moment where he's toying with Peter.
Yes.
Where you're not sure that he knows, but as the conversation goes along, you realize, oh no, he knows, and he is absolutely threatening Peter, and it comes across as very threatening.
Yes.
And it's such a psychological thing that's so beyond the physical, terror of Venom or Green Goblin, which, yes, can be a very physically threatening thing, but you need that psychologically threatening thing.
Couldn't agree more.
In this group. And you need that Michael Keaton character to bring out the sinister undertones of it.
I think that is easily the best scene in the movie. I'm glad that you brought that up. That's my favorite part as well, and he's so good in it. So also somebody mentioned shockwaves versus electricity. Absolutely, I do think you could depict it differently enough. I just think in Shocker and Electro they're a little similar.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think
I always was more of a Shocker fan than Electro.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think Shocker's design is just so much cooler.
He's a cool looking character versus Electro, who is not a cool looking character.
Not like,
for sure. So let's see. He doesn't have electricity powers. He doesn't even have powers. Only shockwave gauntlets. Yeah, for sure.
He's in Homecoming, Spider-Man. Shocker is
very briefly, and not the version that you would think. I mean, he doesn't have a costume on. He's just got the gauntlets. And in fact, 2 different people play him. Caleb's got that expression about him again. I don't trust a man who looks like that. Look at that face. All right. Well, so then we go into Spider-Man Far From Home, and we are introduced to Mysterio. I guess that's the only one we're really introduced to in that movie. And I thought he was a fantastic villain. I really liked what they do with him. But I don't see Mysterio's machinations playing a factor in this film. It's either all of it is or nothing is. Paul, is there any chance that this is a Mysterio movie?
I don't think so. The problem is that Mysterio's power is so overwhelming to a plot that to have him in the group, you'd be wasted not being used. And then if he is used, then what's the point of having the other villains there?
Yeah.
Because the whole thing is obfuscation. You don't get a chance with his obfuscation. You don't get a chance to have the threatening scene with Vulture. You don't get a chance to have the side of the building acrobatics with Doc Ock. You don't get any of that because he overwhelms the rest of the plot.
It's a really good point, Paul. Wait a second. Apparently I missed Scorpion. I wasn't aware that Scorpion was introduced in Far From Home. And then yes, Tinkerer was also a part of it. I did remember that one. But yeah, you guys let me know where Scorpion was at.
Can we get this? I'm throwing in a wishful thinking. Can we get TV version of Kingpin in this movie?
Oh my dude, that would be great. Yeah,
then I will see this movie.
Get Vincent D'Onofrio. I would love to see him in that.
Yeah, and well, actually, they're talking about rebooting Daredevil, and I don't know if they're keeping D'Onofrio and Charlie Cox, but they really should.
Oh, they should.
They're so good. So
good.
All right, well, we've kind of picked our favorites out of each of the different respected films. I gotta ask real quick before we wrap this thing up. This is one thing that I've always liked about Spider-Man is that he is a more street level character, akin to, the Jessica Jones, the Daredevils, all of those kind of, New York based superheroes. The Marvel Cinematic Universe decided very early on that this Spider-Man was not going to be the neighborhood vigilante that kind of fought crime on his own. He's going to be a part of this super team, which is the Avengers. And because they didn't go the great power, great responsibility route of Uncle Ben and doing the same old origin story just out of fear that it was getting to be trite and just overdone, they decided to basically remove Uncle Ben from the equation and give Peter Parker a father figure in the form of Tony Stark in the first film. In the first film, Peter needs a daddy, and it's Tony Stark. In the second film, Peter needs a daddy, and it's like Happy and Nick Fury. And then in this movie, Peter needs a daddy, and it's like Doctor Strange and who else? It's like every single one of these Spider-Man movies, he needs an older male mentor to kind of step in and be the character that teaches him the responsibility thing. Is that something, Paul? Is that something that you've noticed about the movies? Does it bother you? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, that's why I loved Spider-Man Homecoming so much, because who was the mentor? It was himself. You had Spider-Man teaching himself, and then it wasn't just a one-way thing either, because you had older Spider-Man teaching younger Spider-Man about the moves, about being Spider-Man.
Oh, Into the Spider-Verse is what you're talking about.
I'm sorry, Into the Spider-Verse, yes. And then you have Miles Morales teaching the older Spider-Man about being Peter Parker, about being a human, and letting Mary Jane go and being able to move on as a person. And so it was a very interesting back and forth that the younger one was the more mature one out of those two Spider-Men. And I really loved that dynamic because I'm so tired of seeing Spider-Man as a teenager. I'm sick of it. I don't need this origin story. We've had this rebooted 3 times now. I watched it in the cartoon. I watched it in the movies. I watched it in the reboot of the movies. I watched it in the second reboot of the movies where they kind of skipped over it, but they still gave him the father figure with Tony Stark. And I don't need it anymore with him. Let him grow up and let him deal with the problems. Go back to some of the stories from the comic books if you want to about the issues of him with Mary Jane and them trying to have kids. And you don't have to get into the horror aspects of some of the ones where like they have like Mary Jane with cancer or whatever.
Yeah. Got it.
But you can deal with the issues of the fact that maybe the angle of him is that he's not growing up, that this is still play for him. And he's going out and being in this
costume,
and it's fun, and he's ignoring his responsibilities. They touched on that in the third Sam Raimi movie.
Yeah.
But he abandoned it completely, because then it's all about him losing his powers, and then you have to have 3 villains. And so it's this really fascinating interplay between him and Mary Jane that's abandoned in like the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to see that addressed again. I don't need teenager Spider-Man with a father figure that he loses again.
Caleb, does that speak into you, man?
100%. I mean, I love Spider-Man in the Civil War comic. Like, that is an incredible version of Spider-Man where he's dealing with being a father and trying to figure out. He's also dealing with understanding that his heroes are not necessarily his heroes, and that maybe the hero that he's looking up to is in fact the villain, and he's a better person than them. And it's such a more, I think, by keeping Spider-Man young, you are criminally underselling what that character is capable of portraying and the emotional depth that character has. Yeah, you keep him young, and he is a kid, and everyone, I hate to say it, all of us, when we're kids, we do have less emotional depth.
Yeah, of course.
We all do. And people in general become more fascinating as they grow up. Let this kid grow up. Let him have more interest. Let him have more depth to him. I haven't seen the MCU Spider-Man, but it sounds like my problem. I've kind of abandoned Spider-Man films. Sick of seeing a kid trying to discover who he is over and over and over.
And I don't mind it. I think it's an approach, and I don't dislike it. My interpretation of the character seems to be much more akin to what y'all are talking about as well. And I'm okay with them kind of taking a different path, because maybe this divergent path actually helps keep the character fresh. Maybe it allows for later on down the line for us to explore the college years, the post-college years, and continue on with this character. But the core essence of what Spider-Man has been changed quite a bit in the MCU. But all that is a little bit more negative than my take on this movie. All collectively, like, I'm very excited about it. I can't wait to see what they end up doing. I think it's completely fascinating that it was, I think, 2016, 2017 when Batman vs. Superman and Civil War were on the big screen at the same time. And here we are now where The Flash and Spider-Man are coming out at similar times, and both of them deal with multiverse, and Michael Keaton's in all of it. And I'm excited. I can't wait to see what happens. I think it's a matter of time before we get our MCU Avengers fighting our Justice League and all of that stuff, because at this point, the doors have been blown off of all of it, and we're starting to see unprecedented things. It started off with Spider-Man and Civil War, with the way that he was introduced into this other franchise, and since then, we're starting to see it more and more. So I think there's some exciting things on the horizon. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Let us know who your pick for the Sinister Six is down in the comment section below. We really appreciate you coming by and being a part of the conversation. It's so much more fun when we got people here to be a part of the discussion. So I do really appreciate you deciding to spend a little bit of the time out of your week to talk movies. And don't worry, no matter what your answer is, you can't be wrong as long as you play along. So make sure to leave those Sinister Six picks down in the comment section. Caleb, as always, thank you for coming by, man.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. Paul, this was fun. I hope you enjoyed yourself.
A blast. Anytime.
All right, check down in the description. I will post links. That way you can check out what else is going on in the world. And until next time, and on behalf of all of us, be terrible. Peace.
I'm gonna go eat and try to get the
fun.